Good day, everyone. My name is Rich Chester, and I'm the Director of Business Intelligence at LPA Software Solutions. It's my pleasure to be with you today to talk to you about what's new in the IBM Cognos Analytics release 11.1.7, sometimes known as R7. There are a substantial number of enhancements in R7 along with the expected bug fixes. As we'll talk about in a moment, 11.1.7 is what's known as an LTS release, which, among other things, means that this is the last release that IBM will put out in the 11.1 series. This screen shows a pretty comprehensive list of all of the enhancements that are included in R7. We won't have time to demonstrate all of these today, but we'll talk about most of them, and I will demonstrate as many as fits in the hour that we have together. I'll also talk to you about an opportunity that you will have to get your hands on 11.1.7 with me in a guided tour, a hands-on tour. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Today's webinar, like all our webinars, is being recorded, and you can pick up any previously recorded webinar from our website, www.lpa.com, or from our YouTube channel. And in both places, you'll find our entire What's New in IBM Cognos Analytics series dating all the way back to the early days of 11.0, as well as some deep dives into topics like dashboards and data modules, as well as additional topics other than Cognos Analytics. LPA Software Solutions delivers services in financial performance management, analytics with Watson, advanced analytics and data science and modeling, and a whole lot more. And for all of those different practice areas, along with Cognos Analytics, you can find these webinars. And we hope that this is a library that you find useful and educational as you continue on your analytics journey. LPA Software Solutions is a company that delivers a wide variety, almost an eclectic variety of services. And my area, the business intelligence practice, delivers the services outlined here. Perhaps one or more of these would be of interest to you. If they are, please feel free to reach out to me using my email address, rchester@lpa.com, and I'll be happy to get in touch with you and discuss any of these in more detail. Upgrades and migrations are perhaps one of the most popular offerings that we have, in that there are new releases of Cognos Analytics every few months. There are some folks who are still on Cognos 8 and on 10. Last quarter, I even helped an organization that was on ReportNet 1.1 migrate to 11. We install and configure, we upgrade your models, we test content. We can automate that testing with Lifecycle Manager, or if you happen to have access to Modio, we can use that with you. We can also support you as you go live. And if you happen to be on Cognos Series 7 using Impromptu or PowerPlay Client, we can also help you migrate from those environments forward. And for that matter, guys, if you're on any other reporting tool, Crystal Reports, one of the Oracle products, Business Objects, whatever it is, and you are migrating to Cognos Analytics, we have services that will help you with that migration. Perhaps the day-to-day care and feeding of your Cognos Analytics environments is no longer value added for you to keep in-house. Then you could look at LPA and potentially outsource the management of your Cognos Analytics environment, the ongoing monitoring, if you will, the ensuring that Cognos is up, that it is tuned properly, that you are not stretching the resources on your servers throughout the day. Perhaps even a how-to desk where you can have your folks call and request support while they're developing. All of those kinds of services are available through my practice at LPA. Sometimes you just have a bunch of reports you want to write. And in these interesting times, there are a lot of new reports that have come up to understand how our different companies are faring as we weather the coronavirus outbreak. If you are one of those folks with a large backup of reports to be written, perhaps LPA can help. Please reach out to me. rchester@lpa.com if indeed this sounds like something you could use. Health checks are an interesting offering from two perspectives. One, just an ongoing, have I tuned my environment appropriately? I want to know that it is built upon a set of best practice approaches. Perhaps you have actual issues. For the most part, it runs fine, but the first Monday of every month, we seem to hammer the system and we have stability issues. Is there anything I can do? A health check is going to uncover opportunities for you to improve the stability and performance of your Cognos environment. Another reason a health check becomes handy is often we are upgrading in place. As you may know, especially if you've been on 11 for a while, one of the approaches in terms of upgrading from 11x to 11y is to do an upgrade in place. Well, a health check can help you ensure that what you have today prior to upgrading is built on an extremely firm foundation, and that upgrading in place actually makes sense. And with the upgrade, you will not, because of new features, run into resource constraints. So a lot of reasons a health check might make sense, and we would be able to tailor a health check to your particular needs if you were to engage us. And then last but certainly not least are our training services. LPA is very proud of the fact that we have developed our own training materials for report authoring, dashboard authoring, modeling using data modules, the creation of dashboards, active reports, creating reports using dimensional data, OLAP cubes from analysis services, or power cubes, or TM1, or dynamic cubes. In addition to the reports, the classes that we have developed ourselves, we have access to the entire library of IBM developed classes. So if LPA has not developed our own class, we can access the materials to all of the IBM classes and have an LPA consultant act as your instructor and deliver that class so that you get the benefit of the real world experience of a consultant, not someone who is focused only on the delivery of training. So you get access to the real world brain to pick during class. I mentioned earlier that we were going to give you the opportunity to get your hands on 11.1.7. And that event is up on our website, lpa.com/events. We're offering on August 21st, 2 sessions. These are 3-hour sessions. One is at 9 a.m., one begins at 1 p.m. Eastern. These are 3 hours with me where there would be a guided walk through the features and functions in 11.1.7 and plenty of time for you to ask questions that would be germane to your organization as you make the decision whether or not upgrading to 11.1.7 is going to deliver the benefits that you would need to justify the upgrade. So again, this is free. There's 16 participants in each session, so that's a total of 32 folks. First come, first served. So please go to lpa.com/events, find the August 21st entry on the calendar, and sign up for one of the 2 sessions. So, what is new in 11.1.7? Frequent visitors to my webinars know that I do tend to try to cram an awful lot into an hour, and I do often run out of time to answer the questions that you've submitted. I will promise that any question that gets submitted, whether I have time while we're together in our hour today, or if I have to answer it afterwards via email, I will answer any questions that you submit. So please use the WebEx chat feature to submit questions. If we have time at the end, I will try to answer some on the air, but it will, I guarantee that you will receive a response from me after the webinar is over to any question that you post. Now, I mentioned earlier that 11.1.7 is what's known as a long-term support release, or LTS release. What does that mean? Well, it means that IBM commits to supporting that release for a period of 2 years with an available 1-year extended option, which I presume is for a fee. although I'll be honest, I have not looked into what it would take to adopt that 1-year extended support option. 11.0.13 was the LTS release for the 11.0 series. 11.1.7 is the LTS release for 11.1, which means that the very next release that you will hear about from IBM for Cognos Analytics could be numbered 11.2. I understand that there's some discussion as to whether it will be 11.2 or some other numbering, but it will not be 11.1.8. 7 is the last one. So IBM provides defect correction, security patches, and conformance updates, but not for everything. But they will effectively, a new version of SQL Server comes out. It may be that IBM will publish a patch, or just publish the results of testing that says that the product is conformant with that version of SQL Server, right? So some external software changes IBM commits to supporting, as well as security issues that are discovered with the product and any defects that are discovered with the products. And they'll do that for 2 years with that optional 3rd year add-on. What they will not provide, however, are enhancements. So the capabilities, the features that are in this release, they're not going away. They're not going to release and take away things. New releases will be patches through Fix Central, and they will address the 3 things above. What you will not get is brand new functionality in this release. Now, these LTSs, IBM is trying to release in about an 18-month cadence. So you've got 6-month overlap between the beginning of a new LTS and the end of the previous LTS. That's their goal, and they're not going to necessarily make that to the day, but that's their goal. So that's what LTS means. 11.1.7 is that for Cognos Analytics 11.1. So let's get into the enhancements. There's a handful of enhancements with reporting, and they're by and large, with 2, I think, notable and important exceptions, around capabilities added to the 11.1 visualizations. For example, they have added baselines to certain charts in the 11.1 visualization gallery. And there's 3 types of baselines supported: category index, numeric value, and percent on axis. I do have a quick demo of that. You might notice that these overlap a little bit with the baseline capability that was on the Cognos 8 and 10 chart library. They do overlap. They're not identical. The chart library still does support more baseline types than these, but these are the first 3 that IBM is supporting. Folks who are very familiar with that charts library also know that trend lines are part of the charts on that library. Those have not yet been added to 11.1 visualizations, although at the time that I attended an IBM webinar on this release, the presenter did say that that's on the roadmap. So we'll see when that shows up, but it won't be as part of 11.1.7. There is enhancements to combination charts. The combination charts are far more functionally rich. What does that mean in the end? Well, outside of things like being able to nest multiple measures into either the line layer or the column layer, or both, you have a plethora of new properties that can affect the look and feel of the combination charts. The waterfall visualization has also been enhanced. One of the big enhancements is this notion of a subcategory, and being able to divide your data in the waterfall into, if you will, detail and summary lines. I'll show an example with tenure. The screenshot here shows an example where the level of education is broken up by gender. So you see the green bars, green meaning that the value is increasing in each bar. And then the blue bar is a total by a subcategory, in this case, gender. So I'll show you an example of that too really quick. And then the last enhancement to the visualization world in reporting is in tree maps. And tree maps have new display modes. If you use the new nomenclature, the display modes supported heretofore were all squarify was the mode. And that's what I think we're used to with tree maps thus far. What they've added is a slice, dice, and slice dice option to the display mode on tree maps. So if tree maps are your thing, and you were hopeful that there could be other ways to visualize the squares, the rectangles on your visualization, that is exactly what this does. So those are the enhancements for visualizations. And again, these apply to the 11.1 gallery. An old feature that is new again is the ability to run a single page in your report. So in previous 11.1 releases, the run a page feature has not been available to us. It is now back in R7. You would navigate to the list of pages using the navigation toolbar, and select a page, and on the on-demand toolbar there is now a run button that will allow you to run that page in any of the supported formats. And the last, I guess that is the last. Oh, it's here. It's on a single slide. You can control the on-demand toolbar now. So as 11 aficionados know, reports can run in two modes, with or without full interactivity. When you run with full interactivity, which is the default for new reports, when you click on objects in the report you are running, a toolbar will come up. And heretofore, we've been unable to control whether or not that toolbar comes up for users. Now, on a report-by-report basis, you can control. In interactive mode, am I going to enable the toolbar when my users run or not? So it's a yes-no setting with a default of yes. By the by, there is also a new capability in 11.1.7 where you can, on a role basis, give or take away the ability to use the on-demand toolbar to a collection of users. And then, in addition to that setting, this setting would be examined. So if you said no on-demand toolbars to this group, this setting can be ignored. If you said yes, this group of folks, this role is mapped to the on-demand toolbar capability, and the report says no, they will not see it for that one report. But when the reports say yes in this property, they will. So with that, let me jump to Cognos. It's not in the slide yet, but you'll notice that the color scheme has changed. This is, again, IBM's ongoing effort to modify the UI to match their new standards. And the color scheme here, really simple changes, right? It's relative to the color of the nav bar and the app bar. And what you'll see when we get into reporting is that they did change over all of the icons in reporting with this release, where they did not in the previous release. Even though there were icon changes in the previous release, reporting was not included. Now it is. I've got some reports open. So that baseline, this is a baseline report. I'll go ahead and edit the report. So this is a clustered column chart from the 11.1 visualizations. I'll select it, and I'll bring up the properties, and you'll note that there is a baselines property. I already added a baseline, which is just to highlight an interesting number. I'll add another one just quick. I'll do a category index. Now this is going to be a vertical line, so as categories run along the bottom. And what I'm saying is highlight the second category in my category list on the x-axis. I'll give it a label and click OK, and you'll see now I have both a horizontal, which is relative to my y-axis value, and vertical, which is relative to one of my category members. And you'll notice this line is not labeled because that is a property of the baseline, which I did not happen to set. So let me just go in there quickly and turn it on, which is this one, and I see caption is none. I'll do a vertical caption there, and you should see the caption I typed in. So that's a baseline. Jumping into the combo charts. Again, this is an enhanced combo chart. In the column and in the line axis, I can nest multiple measures. And then there's a bunch of new properties. And obviously I'm not going to read you through all of the properties, but you can see there's many. One I'm often asked about that I can finally say, yes, that property exists is, am I forced to use the zero origin, or can I change it? The answer I've had to give to can I change it has been no heretofore, but now I can say, yes, you get to choose whether or not a chart will start with the zero origin with this release. So lots of new features and functions with the combo chart in this release. This tree map report, this is the one that had the multiple display modes. Oh, for some reason I don't have a edit button. I will go ahead and edit it for you. And it's in my content. And do take note of the icons. They have indeed all changed. Let me select here. So you notice the icons up in the toolbar have all changed as well. And I'll go into page preview and I will change my display mode. So this is the default Squarify. I will change to slice. Let me unselect the chart so we can see the whole chart. Oh, I guess I can't. Oh, I know what I got to do. I got to select the chart again. That'll get rid of the panel. So that's slice. Dice is on the opposite axis. And then there is a slice and dice. So 4 different display modes in your tree maps with R7. So lots of focus on visualizations and reporting, as you can see. And then finally, this is that waterfall diagram. So let me edit this and show you. So I have, it's rather large. Let me scroll down. So I've got my data broken down by product line and then summarized by the tenure of my sales guy, 10 years plus versus under 10 years. So the blue bars are my subcategories. So let me select the, and you can see subcategory product line. I have to scroll up. I was going to say, I said that backwards, didn't I? So tenure is my x-axis. My subcategory is product line. So the subcategory is as examined within your axis is how that works. So tenure is the outside, a product line is the inside. So I get my inside analysis and then I get my summary by my outside data item. And that is your waterfall enhancement. Now, as I mentioned, this report doesn't happen to have multiple pages, but if this report had multiple pages and I wished to test just one while developing, the on-demand toolbar for a page includes the Run Page button now. And so this will allow me to run the page I've selected in whatever format is necessary for the test that I'm doing. So that is a function that was available in Cognos 10. I think it came back in 11.0 at some point, but was removed again. And now it is back in the long-term support release 11.1.7. And then finally, on the report property sheet, if I open the properties for interactive reports, I now get the opportunity to determine, to indicate will or will not my end users running the report see the on-demand toolbar. So I can set defaults to yes, I can set it to no, so that for individual reports, I have the ability to turn off the toolbar if indeed it's not appropriate for that report to have the toolbar on. So that's your reporting enhancements. Let's chat about where the enhancements were really focused in this release, and that is on dashboards. So dashboards have a number of interesting enhancements. Many of them are in the world of visualization, certainly, but an overall enhancement that you'll immediately notice is the addition of drop zones to visualizations that you add to your canvas. Now, you'll be able to drag and drop data from your data source into these drop zones up until the point that the visualization can display data. In other words, once all of the data slots that have stars on them, sorry about that, my neighbor is mowing their lawn. Once all the data slots that have stars on them have been filled in and the visualization can display data, then the drop zones will no longer be there. And you will use the Fields panel, which was introduced in R6, to continue to populate the drop zones. So if you're going to use the drop zones for as long as possible, drop the optional data in first, and then then finally drop into the required data slots, or just use the field so you don't have to use these drop zones. Another big change that is really welcome, over in the Fields panel, when you click into a data slot, you can search your data sources. So it does a contains type search, so you can type in any piece of the data item you are looking for. All of the matches and their sources will be presented to you. You can then pick from the list, the search results. You can pick the data items you wish for the slot. So I'll show you that in just a moment. Smart titles on visualizations. So heretofore, I had to manually title any visualization for which I wanted a title. What I can use now is called a smart title, where the tool will label your visualization based on the content. So it essentially looks at what you've dragged into the tool, and it derives a title for you. So now you have three options. You have no title, you have custom title, which is the title you enter and manage, and those were the options prior to this release, and now there's a new option called smart title. Conditional formatting has changed overall in this release for both crosstabs and tables. It is far more robust and a bit more flexible in the way that conditional formatting is flexible in reports. While it's not 100% the same as what I can do in a report, it's much, much closer to that, where I can actually enter rules for conditionally formatting the data that is displayed. So I can show you that. Again, all time permitting. You can create selectable module filters while in a dashboard. This feature was available in a data module prior to this release. In this release, the very same ability to create a filter and define it and save it with your dashboard, in this case, not your data module, is there. It lets you use the expression editor. So you've got the ability to create rather complex and macro-based functions in your filter expressions. And then they become optionally insertable. So after you've defined it, you can drag it into a visualization. You can drag it up into the filter doc. But the idea here is that you can define these optional filters for insertion right here now in your dashboard. You simply use the action menu on a table. Keep in mind that this option is not available when you source your dashboard from a package. It's available when you source your dashboard from data modules and uploaded files and data sets, just not packages. Dashboards now support schematics. A couple of releases ago in reporting, you were able to define schematics using an SVG file that laid out the geography of your schematic, and then you could add to your SVG file tags, and then you could map your data to those tags in a report. That exact same feature and function is now available in a dashboard. Lots of times when I'm creating and running a dashboard, especially when I'm authoring dashboards and I have a very slow performing widget, I want to see the SQL. And heretofore, it's been very, very difficult to capture that SQL. And now it's very, very simple. Simply type Control period on your keyboard, Control dot. And that will bring up a panel. And on that panel, there's a Show SQL MDX button that will become active after you enable the Fetch Query button. So the switch turns on, Show SQL becomes available, you click it, and then you can see the SQL affiliated with your widget. And so you can examine whether it's the SQL you expect. You could also use the native SQL option and present the SQL to your database team so they can look at how they might be able to optimize it in the database later. So that's a new feature in dashboards. If you've got a dashboard that is laid out with the widgets and the tabs and other objects that you want to use over and over with different data, then you can now do a Save As template in the dashboard. As soon as you do that, you will get this new custom option when you launch Create New Dashboard. And in it will be all of the templates that have been saved in your My Content, plus any that are in Team Content to which you have access. And then you can use those. So if you will, you lay out a dashboard. It's got 27 widgets on it over 5 tabs. When you say Save as Template, the widgets are there, the tabs are there, the data is not. So when you create from one of these templates, you add a data source to that dashboard with the template, and then you map your data source to all of the widgets and things that are on that template. And then, of course, you can modify that afterwards. It's a starting point. It's not sacrosanct or uneditable. But if you have a dashboard layout with a collection of widgets that you always use for tab 1, this new template feature is going to help you reuse that layout without having to start over every time. You can export the data for a visualization from the data tray. So all of the components of your dashboard that support the visualization data feature in the data tray, which means none of the widgets sourced from a package and none of the map widgets, because those don't support the visualization data feature. With R7, the visualization data feature has been enhanced to include export data, which exports your data in a CSV. You might see this written up as exporting to Excel. It's only Excel because by default most of us have CSVs mapped to Excel, but it's technically a text file, a CSV file. So you select your visualization, you open the data tray, you use the action menu, you choose Export Data from the visualization data pane. Remember that the data tray in which this feature exists is only available when you are in edit mode for a dashboard. It's not available when you are in view mode for your dashboard. And there's a whole lot more in dashboards that I summarize on this slide that I did not build a specific slide for. There's improvements in axis labels. They change the padding and the angles based on feedback. You can turn on a logarithmic scale in visualizations if you need a logarithmic scale. There's a property called responsive that has your visualization hide things like labels or the legend as the size of your screen gets smaller. So there's an automatic detection of your screen size if Cognos feels it can display all of the features it does. As the screen gets smaller and smaller, features go away to maximize the data that is displayed. This is by default. I believe it's on. I guess we'll check in a moment when we build a dashboard. But I think the default, I think the default is off and you can turn it on, but we'll find out. New axis options in the properties. More label options in pies, including having your labels be outside the pie slices. In visualization, legends and ellipsis will be displayed if there are too many items to display in the space that you have allocated for the legend. The subcategories in waterfalls and the tree map visualization display modes that we saw in reporting are also part of dashboards. So let's do a few things with dashboards. What I'm going to do is I am going to navigate to a data module, not a particularly robust one necessarily, but a data module just so I can show you the filter feature, right? Because I can't use a package when I do that. So I'm going to use this historical sales data module and create a new dashboard. I have no custom templates yet. So as you can see, I have no prompt to choose a custom template. But we'll create one so you can see what that looks like. I'm going to double click here so I have some space to create a visualization. Now if you've taken my dashboard class, you'll know that what we start out doing you can still do, which is you can grab values and drag them on to your canvas just like that. And some folks really like the let Cognos pick my visualization approach that dragging and dropping data on the canvas allows. However, many of the new features really only come up if you start by picking a visualization. I'll go ahead and pick a column visualization. And when you add that to your canvas, and the visualization is large enough, you'll note drop zones. So you see length is the only required drop zone. So if I want to use all 3 drop zones, the last thing I should drop is length. Because you see, as soon as I put length in, the drop zones will go away because data can be rendered. That's why I said always do the starred ones last if you want to use the drop zones. So I'm going to go ahead and do a product line for my color. And you see I can't display data yet because I haven't fulfilled the requirements for the viz. So I can keep on dragging. So I'll drag year for bars, and then I'll drag revenue for. And so this is very reminiscent of writing a report for those of you who are report authors. Now, you notice that the fields option is still here. And of course, everything I dragged is here. I'm going to remove product line. And I'm going to click into color to search. Now, I don't have to search. You see, it does actually display everything that is in my data source. But I could also say I want my product information. And so you see I typed in prod. Or I know I want product types, so I could type in just type, you see. And it's a contains type search. And so I can choose product type, and there now I have the product type. And this is actually maybe a really good chance to do this. I'm going to turn on the properties, and we're going to check out that that new feature. Okay, so responsive defaults to on, so now we know. So responsive says that as the viewport gets smaller, Cognos is going to eliminate things to maximize the ability to see data. Do you see what it's doing there? You see, this little guy, I can still see data. Oh, and remember, right, starting with 11.1.6, this expand, right, maximize, that's always available to me, even for these little tiny guys. But see, with responsive on, I can see stuff. Let me turn it off. Because responsive is off, it's trying to display everything in the definition for the visualization. Because there's not room for it, I've lost all my data. Responsive, which as you saw was turned on by default, allows Cognos to eliminate other display aspects of your visualization and maximize the ability to see your data. Let me just pull that out. Another thing you should have noticed is the automatic labeling. The ability to change the label, right? Title type. You see it defaults to Smart Title, which means that it did revenue by year, colored by product type. That is exactly, if you will, a reiteration of what's here in the fields. Yeah. And if I drag country over to a local filter and drop it, and I just pick Brazil, okay, do you see that it's not perfect? That it does not say filtered by Brazil? And that's in part because, right, my end users could remove Brazil, right? But it's about the major drop zones, not about every drop zone. But I really like this Smart Title feature. I know I will use it a lot. If you're not a big fan, though, you can always turn it off, and you could go back to no title. You can also do custom title, where it will start with the Smart Title that was there and let you change it. Or, of course, you can stick with the Smart Title setting. Okay, so now I've got 2 visualizations here. Again, in the interest of time, I cannot display each and every feature and function for you today. But if we go back here and just take a quick gander, let's just, I'll do some conditional formatting and the model filters, because looking at the time, it looks like I've talked fast enough that we have time for that. So sorry if it sounds like I'm on a lot of caffeine today. I'm just trying to fit in a bunch for you. So, model filters. Right-click or choose the action menu button on a table in a data module in an uploaded file, and a data set filter will be here. And these are, if you will, optional filters, or what's known as an insertable filter. This is not a filter the entire dashboard with what I put in here option. That is, I would invoke that kind of thing by right-clicking on a column. So this filter allows me to filter every part of this dashboard using this data source to my selected product types. Not what I'm talking about as new. The new feature is up here on the table. And when I add a filter there, first of all, you'll notice it's not a wizard pop-up. It is a expression builder. Let's just do a quick United States data. I'll drag country over, and I'll say equals United States. Yeah. You can edit those after you create them, of course. And you know, I didn't have to type in United States because I'll be honest, I don't even know if it's United States or USA or what. What I could have done and should have done was expand that country and then I can drag over the United States member. That's probably even a better way to go. Clearly, I could put in a far more complex expression, but I think you get the gist of what these are. So you notice you've got access to macro functions, all the rest of the functions. You have access to the entire set of tables. Again, this is a simple data module with one table, but had this data module had 10 tables, this button here would have given me access to all 10 tables to include in my filter expression. This top button is just about the table I selected. So lots and lots of options. You'll notice that it does nothing to my dashboard. It added it as a insertable object to my data source. If I want to add it to my dashboard, I could add it to this tab, and it will filter all of my widgets. Now this one has no data because it's filtered to both Brazil and the United States. Let me get rid of the Brazil entry. There we go. And I could also have dragged it to my all tabs, or I could have just dragged it to a widget. So if I this should be all countries now, and if I just drag this here, we should just see the United States highlighted, nothing else, right? So I can insert this filter anywhere filters belong in the dashboard, but I now have access to the full expression editor to create these individual insertable filters. Let's do some conditional formatting. I'll add a new tab just to get some space. And I'm going to go to my visualizations. I'll add a cross tab. And let me populate that cross tab. Cross tabs do not have drop zones. You work with those over here in the fields column. It is still absolutely reasonable to drag data into the fields. That's fine, but you can also click into the data slot and pick. And then the value I'll do is revenue. And finally, I'll get a cross tab. And what I'd like to do is highlight the cross tab and open my property sheet. And what I should find is conditional color. And so this is going to give me access to all of the conditionally formatable columns there are in the dashboard. The list that's here will change based on the dashboard, the cross tab or list. It's not called a list in a dashboard. The cross tab or table that you are conditionally formatting. So it reads what you've done and says you can conditionally format this thing based on your definition. I'll click that. It allows me to pick a palette. It does the color by, and it will actually let me color based on a value that is not the value displayed, just like in a report. And you can do a scale that is either percent or numeric. I'll do just numeric for my example, and I can add a new rule. See how much more flexible this is than it used to be. So I'll click on the new rule. I will say that I want it to be less than or equal to 100 million, and I will color that red. And you see how these are greater than 100 million, and so they are not affected. I can do compound for this particular rule or not. Once this rule is entered, I can add another rule, and I could say, and I want anything greater than 300. Oops. Oh my goodness. Oh, I know why. So let's do that again. And oops, let me complete this rule. 300 million, and that would be greater than or equal to, and green is good. Oh, I have this little collection of icons that I can add as well. So, you know, if I want to put a frowny face or a happy face or one of the other items, I can. And so that rule is now in place. This rule I actually should delete. And so I just want those two rules. And then if I expand this so we can see it, I may or may not have any green data. It looks like I don't have any green data. But I believe you get the gist. Now, here in the fields, there is still you know, the ability to do the search and whatnot, right? The thing that's missing that used to be here for crosstabs and tables is the color drop zone. The color data slot is not available anymore. It has been replaced by this new conditional formatting feature, right? It's not in addition to the old conditional formatting feature that was there. What time is it? All right, I'm getting close on time. The schematic stuff, if you attend the session that I described earlier, the hands-on 11.1.7 session, we will absolutely do a schematic together. But for today, I'm a little out of time. I will show you, though, the control dot feature, which opens the panel. And here's the query, and I'll turn on the fetch, and I'll say show, and there's the SQL for the query. Okay, so that's what's all what's up with that. All right, save as template and export super quick. If I do a save as template and I put that out in my folders, I won't even change the name. I'll just hit save. I said my folders. I mean my content, of course. It's now a template. All the data has been gone. There is no data in a template. But when I use that template to create a new dashboard, now you'll note I have a custom for templates. And then I can pick the template I have access to and create a new dashboard. I can then add a data source, and you see how it's kept my visualizations and my layout, and it allows me to map new data into that template. That's the notion of the template. And then finally, that export option. I will open my data tray. I'll go to my visualization data. I will click on my action menu for the visualization data pane, and I'll choose export data. And you notice it downloaded a CSV, which I can then open, and there is the CSV of the data that made up that visualization. Okay. Dashboard enhancements. There are many. In the 11.1.7 hands-on session, we will certainly play with pretty much all of them. All right, data modules. There's really one enhancement to data modules, and that is that the relative time functionality has had 5 new filters and measure options added. Current week, prior week, week to date. Prior week to date, and same week last year. It didn't go down to weeks in previous releases, it only went down to months. So now we have all of these interesting relative time periods for week. In addition to that, there's a new sample calendar, which is a 454 fiscal year calendar based on the National Retailer Federation fiscal calendar. So that is now part of it. When you install the 11.1.7 samples that come with the product, this new calendar will be installed, and it'll be available along with all the old calendars with Gregorian and fiscal calendars that all begin and end. Each period begins and ends on a month boundary. So all of those calendars have these 5 new real-time relative time filters, and I actually get a new calendar on top of that. And that is literally the changes to data modules in this particular release. From an administration perspective and usability, maybe the biggest piece of that is the new scheduling interface, where how I schedule now has brought back, well, IBM believes every feature you had in Cognos 10 is now available in the Cognos 11.1.7 scheduling panels. To the point where, it used to be in 11.1.6 and before, there was a link to open the classic view of the schedule, meaning open up the Cognos 10 version of the scheduling interface. That option is no longer part of the product. The product now, because IBM believes that they've got everything that was in 10 now somewhere in this new panel, they've taken that option away. So what you have is this new friendly interface panel, does everything you need and summarizes what you're doing over here on the right-hand side. So this gives you a nice recap of your schedule. This and allows you to modify your schedule. And of course, it will update over here appropriately. Options over here are formats, your delivery, languages that you're going to support, and so on. And then your prompts. I don't have any prompts in this report, but you would set your prompt values here. And so this is the new scheduling experience that is part of 11.1.7. I think this is a major step forward as far as usability goes. In terms of new capabilities, there are some capabilities that have been added to 11.1.7 that I think a lot of us have actually been looking for a while. The first one is called Attach Outputs. So you can grant or deny the ability for your users to attach outputs to emails. So if they're allowed to email outputs, by run as or in a schedule, you probably recall that there's two ways to deliver the output: as a link embedded in the email that the user clicks on, logs into Cognos, and retrieves their output, or as an attachment. This new capability allows me to grant or deny the ability to have users send emails as attachments. So because it's a capability, for a certain collection of users, I can turn that off. For another collection of users, I can turn that ability on. And then just in terms of overall email. So email is its own set of capabilities now. So you can control who can email outputs from Cognos. And then there are several sub-capabilities, like will they have an email delivery option when they do run as or not? Will they have the include a link option or not? So you could see where you could do an email and deny both, include a link and include an attachment, which for all intents and purposes makes the email a difficult thing to use to retrieve outputs, right? So don't do that. Don't back yourself into that corner. But including a link may or may not be reasonable, especially if you don't want people to have visibility to the address of your Cognos server, which would be embedded in that link. There is an option to share outputs, annotated outputs, in Cognos, and you can turn off the ability to share those annotated outputs via email using this capability. And finally, you can grant or deny the ability to type in addresses into the address for an email. So if you want to deny folks to the ability to type in an email address that goes outside your domain, you could take away the ability to type in email addresses, and then the only option a person has when they address an email would be to select it from the namespace they're logged into. So lots of good controls as far as the ability to share output via an email means. Data sets, this is huge for those of us who are big data set believers, and I am all about the data set. There's many, many, many reasons to use them. If you're really curious about why I am such a big fan, ask me during the hands-on session that you're going to all sign up for, I hope. The idea with data sets prior to this release was that they were very, very low functioning reports in terms of how you defined them. You didn't get to access the query. You could drag and drop columns, but you couldn't do a union or a join. You couldn't add calculations. You could not add complex filters. there were so many things you could not do that many of us found workaround hacks to create data sets that could do all of those things, including in most recent releases, a hack that had us opening the console on the browser and entering console commands. With this release, this is almost the fully functioning reporting interface where you get access to all the query functions. You can even copy a list report that you have created elsewhere and paste it as a data set and use that original report as the source for a data set. So data sets have now grown up, and they're now capable of providing us with a terrific way to do, if you will, mini ETL to create data tables of selected summarized data from our sources for speed and isolation of load. I'll get more into the goodness of data sets if you want to know about them in the hands-on, and of course we'll do an example during the hands-on as well. Some things we won't be able to demonstrate in the hands-on, but that you should know is there's a bunch of new APIs. So there's a new REST API for automation for you to modify Cognos. Essentially, you can interface to make modifications in the content store via REST. That's, in a summary, what this does. There's another set of APIs specifically to allow you to leverage dashboard widgets in other interfaces. So you can define and present dashboards from Cognos, individual widgets from Cognos in other views, in other portals, in other extensions. It also lets you automate changes to dashboards, and it even exposes certain properties that are not exposed in the dashboard UI. So there are properties in the dashboards that we don't have access to via the standard UI, but we could use this JavaScript API to access those currently hidden properties. So very interesting APIs there. Lots of documentation for these online. And oh, there's more. So the Carbon design updates for the black background, white foreground, and icons. By the by, when you upgrade, the colors will not overwrite to your current theme. So if you have a theme, it will not overwrite your current one. If you don't have a theme, you're using the default theme, then you'll get this new theme by default when you upgrade in place. But if you have a theme, this doesn't overwrite it. Tons of performance focus in this release, tons. Metadata retrieval's faster, data sets are faster, lots more cache is used, but still with a lot of rules about whether the cache can be used from user to user. More query optimizations, especially when it comes to sampling your data to be able to do the auto characterizations that happen when you upload and when you create data modules. So much focus on performance. There is some accessibility, and there's some new best practices documentation coming. It's not out yet. One more thing that's coming that's not out yet. If you are an IBM on the cloud user, you will get a new analytics app that you can download and install on your iPhone that will give you access to pin visualizations from dashboards into your own dashboards on your iPhone. And it will also let you set alerts on those widgets. It will also allow you to use the assistant from there. Lots of goodness in there. It's not out yet. It's going to come out, I am told, in a few weeks. So I'm going to say September-ish. It's just for cloud folks initially. They'll make it available to the on-premise folks later this year, I'm told. It's just iPhones presently. They're going to make it available in Android coming, quote-unquote, soon. So this is something to look for, a new mobile experience for Cognos Analytics. And as I forecasted at the beginning of the webinar, we are effectively out of time, and I have left no time at all for questions. And again, frequent visitors to my webinars know that I do this all the time. But hopefully those of you who have submitted questions also know that I get back to you on each and every question that was submitted with an answer via email, which I promise to do for the plethora of questions that I see you all have entered. So please forgive me for running out of time, but hopefully I have filled your time with a bunch of valuable stuff about the new features in 11.1.7. And what remains is for me to say thank you. thank you very much for attending today's webinar. I've enjoyed having you. Sorry about some of the background noise. All of us are working from home nowadays, myself included, and please forgive the extra noise, but hopefully I talked loud enough and was interesting enough with what I provided to you that it wasn't an issue. Thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to hearing from you again, and to seeing a lot of you in the event with the hands-on that you can register for at lpa.com/events. Bye-bye.